This is Support is Sexy, episode 549, with Aikta Wahi, President of NasalGuard. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I bring you inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and lessons to help you take your business to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm super excited to have you here. You know, it just would not be the same without you. And I'm excited to share the story of our guest today, Aikta Wahi. And Aikta is the president of NasalGuard, great company, which I'm excited about trying their products. But what I love about Aikta's story is that she is in the family business. Her dad is an inventor, as you'll hear about in this episode. He created NasalGuard and has patents on other products. But Aikta talks about the journey of, one, finding your own way at first as a woman, as a career person, and then deciding to go into the family business, what that means and what that's like. And she talks about the stories that we tell ourselves and how we have to know that we can tell ourselves or change our stories, right? Tell a different story, believe a different story. Stories are very powerful. We tell stories here on the podcast, but the most powerful, I believe, are the stories that we tell ourselves, whether they're good stories or bad stories. If I tell myself a story of, I'm bad with being on time, I'm bad with saving money, or I can never win, or I'll never be a good entrepreneur, over and over, you're telling yourself these stories and you start to believe them. You start to behave in that way. So anyway, I really love that Aikta talks about the story she was telling herself growing up and into adulthood as she became a woman, as she became a career person, and the story, what it did as far as keeping her from even entering the family business at first, what she had to overcome, how she's thriving in the business now, and how she's creating her own space. So whether you're in the family business or doing something else where you need to create your own space in what you're doing and change your story, I know you're going to enjoy this episode. So without further ado, Aikta Wahi. So Aikta, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to chat with you.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me, Elayne.
Of course. So our first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
It's funny. I actually don't think I really did until well into doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really something that I ever pictured for myself. But I kind of fell into it, and now I can't really imagine not doing it. I love that it gives you this.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I love that it gives you kind of just the freedom to take chances that you might not think that you'd be able to do, but it still requires a lot of dedication, hard work, structure, relationship building, all the things that I thought that I wanted out of a career. But there is something kind of thrilling about knowing that if you don't do something, it won't get done by anybody.
Mm-hmm. So what did you envision for yourself? You mentioned that you never thought this is where you'd be as an entrepreneur. What was your vision for yourself?
I think honestly, growing up, I didn't really have a clear vision for what I wanted out of my future. And I think that's, it is what ended up eventually leading me here. But I was always a good student. I never really wanted to stand out. So I kind of just always followed along that path. So, I did well in high school. I went to college. I worked for a few years out of college. Then I went to law school, which I think a lot of people who, are good at the kinds of things I was good at, you end up doing because it's a defined career path. And I don't think I ever really had a vision for what that would look like. And then a few years into my career, it just suddenly hit me that I didn't know what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And that's where I really took the leap into entrepreneurship.
What do you think it was about you or your personality that made you want to not stand out, you mentioned?
I think early on, I didn't like the attention that I got, if I did well in class or if I just shared something exciting and other people maybe weren't excited about it. So in school, I started to kind of hang back a little bit. I would do well enough to get good grades. I always had things that I was interested in. I loved, my history classes, my language classes. So I tended to do very well in them, but I really didn't want to be the person, talking in the front of the room. I didn't want to have to tell people, this is what I'm good at.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think that kind of lack of confidence just kind of, stuck with me throughout those years.
Like you kind
of that,
you kind of held yourself back a little bit during that time, it sounds like.
For sure. Yeah. And then over time, I think that was just the story I told myself, that you're not confident. You can't speak in front of people. You're just do what you're supposed to do. And then that's it. And then I don't think after a number of years, I don't think I even realized that I was doing it. I didn't realize that there was something that I was holding down in myself.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important for us to be aware of the story, beware and be aware of the stories that we tell ourselves. For me, it was, people would say to me, I'm quiet. I am quiet. I admit that now. I'm confident in that now. But people would say, you're so shy. Why are you so shy? You're so shy. And I just sort of took on this persona of, oh, okay, I'm shy. I'm quiet. I have to sit in the back, kind of thing, as opposed to,
right.
This is who I am. And as I've grown older now and read Susan Cain's book, Quiet, which I highly recommend for everyone. I'll have a link. But again, it was still just a story. And I had to either have to become okay with the story and decide, yes, this is true, or know that it's just a story you're telling yourself or you believe that other people have told you.
Right. And, since it's a story, you can change the story a little bit. You can try something else on, see how it feels. If you don't like it, then it's not the end of the world.
That's right. That's right. Now, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in New Jersey, kind of a small town in the middle of the state. And I lived there up until high school. And then for college, I was like, I need to experience something else. So I moved to North Carolina for college.
Where'd you go to college?
The University of North Carolina, so Chapel Hill.
Okay. And then after that, you went to, did you continue with law school there or did you go somewhere else for law school?
I actually moved to New York and I worked there for a few years before I went to law school as a paralegal. And then I went to law school at NYU. So I've been in New York basically my entire adult life.
Mm-hmm. So at what point then did you decide that you would shift from, did you become a practicing lawyer or did you do something else?
I actually didn't. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about before about I never really had that vision for myself. It was just the path that I put myself on. As somebody who really excelled in the reading and research part of school. And I always knew that I wanted to help people in some vague way. You kind of get this message that, oh, law school is a good fit for that. So that's what I told myself. I got a job as a paralegal, to see what that would be like. But I think because I did that, I closed off the possibility of other paths before I even started. Once I was surrounded by lawyers, I was surrounded by legal work. That became the only thing that I saw. So I ended up going to law school, and I think I was still dealing with those confidence issues. Mm-hmm. So when I was starting to finish up, I was on a path to become a litigator. I wanted to do public interest work. I started to, I think, get very scared. It kind of hit me like, oh, wow, I'm going to be graduating and I'm going to have this responsibility of, being an advocate for somebody else. And as somebody who spent my whole life, trying to shy away from speaking up for people or even speaking up for myself, that was kind of a very scary thing. So I ended up taking a step back and I went back into the kind of work that I was doing prior to law school, in a different role, but I was working in regulatory compliance. I worked in financial services at a bank. So it was related and, my education came in very useful there. But I was part of an internal team. I wasn't a practicing lawyer.
Mm-hmm. So at what point then did you decide, it sounds like you were feeling it for a while, but at what point do you feel like you said, this isn't it, I have to make a change or I'm going to make a change?
So I did that for a few years. And I think that's where it really started to hit me. Like, this is my life. this is what I do. If I choose to not take a risk, if I do something over and over again just because I'm good at it, years can go by, and what will I have to show for it? So I think the actual experience of, I had before this, just gone along with things. And then I was starting to understand that if I keep just going along with things and don't start to take a little bit more control, I might look back and recognize that I let my entire life get away from me.
Mm-hmm.
So after a couple of years of working in this role, it starts to get pretty repetitive. There's always new things that come up, but there's, an annual cycle of the types of reviews that you do, the reports that you're supposed to create. And I had done them at this point more than twice. So I started to look around for what I could do. I knew that if I wanted to advance, it wasn't going to be at the organization I was at. It was, a small team. My boss wasn't leaving. So I just started to look at other jobs in the same industry, and I realized I don't want to keep doing this. I don't want to be my boss in a few years. I wanted to figure out what else is out there.
I think that's something too that I especially try to tell people who are maybe either just after college or in a position for a while and trying to find their way. Just what you said, look at your boss or whoever, the people who are ahead of you in positions, and think, is that what you want to do someday? Do you want to become that person? Not literally that person, but, in that role kind of thing that day. And if the answer is no, you might want to think about, is this the right place for you? Because there's sort of, I think when you're in a certain job, a career path sort of there for you. And if you're having those feelings like you mentioned of looking ahead and being like, you know what, I don't really want that position, or I don't see that for myself, that could be a clear sign, right? That it's time to make a change.
Right. Yeah, totally. And I think you can take maybe a step back and think about it. What is it that you like to do in your job? And what is it that you don't like to do? And what do you see your boss doing, or the other people around you, maybe on a different team?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you can start to look at it more in terms of what are the actual tasks and what kind of relationships do you have to do something, you don't have to be tied down into a specific role. You can start to look at, what are other types of things, maybe even in a different industry or another department in your company, or start out and do your own thing. What is it that you are actually good at doing, on a smaller level, not even just for an entire job, and then you can kind of take it from there.
So once you had that look or sort of started evaluating and decided, okay, this isn't the thing, did you make the move into the family business at that point, or did you go into something else?
Yeah, that's actually kind of how it started. So my dad is an engineer by training, and he had an engineering consulting firm, but he's also an inventor. So he had a separate entire business devoted to developing his patents, producing his products. And he'd been doing that for over 20 years. He and my mom ran both of these businesses. So as I was looking around for other jobs, my dad sat me down one day and he said, I didn't start doing this on my own until I was 40, because something, or actually even maybe over 40, because something always became an excuse for him. He got married, or then he had me, then he had my sister. And those are all reasons to, keep the steady paycheck. He had a really good job at an engineering firm. It was stable, but he always knew that he had more in him, that he wanted to create something for himself. And he said, there's never a good time. So if you're going to do it, just go ahead and do it. And for me, somebody who's always gone on the path of don't take risks, what's going to happen if you fail, so don't even try. This was just kind of a life-altering thing to think about. Like, what's the harm in trying right now? I didn't have a house. I didn't have kids. So, yeah, if I failed, I had even less to lose than he would. So at the time, I started working part-time with the family business, and he kind of gave me space to think about, other projects that I might want to work on. But over time, he actually was in the process of completely reformulating one of his prior inventions, and he ended up getting a new patent for it. And he was deciding to basically relaunch this product, create an entire new business. And then he came to me and he said, I'm at a turning point. I can either find somebody else to give this to right now, or we can do this together, because, he's in his 60s. He's not trying to do this all by himself anymore. A lot of things have changed in the marketing space since the first time he did this. And I really saw this as an opportunity to be part of something that was real. There was an actual product here that worked, that people felt a need for. But it was also a way to help see my father's vision move forward. And I thought that would be a really meaningful experience for me.
And that product that he was relaunching at that time, was that NasalGuard, or was that something overall?
Yeah.
Company overall. Okay.
Yeah, that's
that particular product.
NasalGuard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell everyone what NasalGuard is and how it works.
So NasalGuard, he actually invented when I was a little kid. I had pretty bad allergies, and especially to cats. And back then, most of the allergy medicines, they made you very drowsy. You were kind of lacking energy. And he really didn't like to see me taking that kind of medicine, especially, like to go play with my friends or something like that. And because he's an engineer, and in general, he's always just had an inventive mind, he started seeing it as, maybe there was a mechanical solution rather than a medical solution to this product or to this problem. Mm-hmm. So he just started experimenting, and he developed this gel. It's a clear, it dries invisible. It has no drugs, but it has an electrostatic charge. And if you put it around your nose, it keeps, at the time it was developed especially for pollen, it keeps pollen from basically entering your nose. And it really works. So you just put it on. And it's like a little, like a little barrier, like a little force field around your nose.
So you put it around your nostrils, like the outside of your nose?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm rubbing my nose right now for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, okay. And then you put it around your nose, it dries, and then it helps stop pollen or any other particles, I guess.
Right. Oh. Right. Yeah. So then so that had been going on for a number of years, the allergy product. And then around the time that I came in, he started reformulating. He was actually tinkering with it because he wanted to remove some of the preservatives that we had been using and come up with a more modern formulation. I think a lot of people in the last couple of years have become a lot more aware of some of these ingredients, and he wanted to see what he could do to improve it on that front. Mm-hmm. And in that process, he realized that the formulation that he came up with was actually the way that it forms is a lot more flexible. So it's more forgiving. So it actually is able to stop a wider range of particles, not just the allergens. So now it works against, air pollution, virus-sized particles. And we're really able to kind of craft a different story about it, which is where I came in.
So when you came into the company and your dad was sort of rethinking it or looking at ways that he might be able to change it or find out things that actually were working, did you come in as president at that time, or did you come in another, certain position and then sort of work your way up to becoming president as you are now? So
when I first started, like I said, I was kind of just a part-time consultant. I would help out with marketing, things like that, but it wasn't in an official president role. Then I think it was within the first year that I was doing that, he not only came up with this formulation, he recognized that we could do more with it than just allergies, which could make it a very different business than what it had been before. So he proposed to me that we do this together. So we created a subsidiary that is just for this product, and that's the one that I'm president of. So he's president of the overall company that handles the development of this and then some other products. And then I handle the marketing for this product.
So since for anyone who's listening, who, even if they didn't invent something, they've created something though, and they're thinking about how to sort of, and I know it'll be very different because it's obviously different products, but if I love what you mentioned about sort of reshaping the story once you discover something new about the brand or what the product can do and that kind of thing. So is there a way for you to tell us sort of what your approach was for reshaping the story? Like, did you focus on, for example, this product now does this, or did you focus on, that you could reach a different kind of customer, or did you focus on, the ingredients, or what was or all three maybe?
Yeah.
What did you look
I mean, I think you do have to be very open-minded. I think you might come into something thinking that because something is interesting to you, it's going to be interesting to everybody, isn't necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm.
Or some other people might think of it in a way that you don't even think of it at all. So I think the first step is even sharing this with other people, like take other people's input, because they might say something that you've never thought of before. So yeah, like my dad, when he created this, it was an allergy product. When he started showing it to other people and then he recognized that the formulation was different, the first thing that other people said was, "Oh my goodness, I want to use this on an airplane."
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, now even half the people that I tell that to, that's the first thing that comes out of their mouth. And that's so far removed from, me with my cat allergies as a kid. So I think in the beginning, it's important to be open to other people's perspectives. One thing that we thought that would be a big hit right away is pet owners, but pet owners don't necessarily have allergies. It's maybe their friends or their family members who are visiting.
Right.
So that's a different story. It's I think if you're trying to develop something new, the best place to start is what would other people want, not just me. Like I know that this is good for me. How are other people going to be able to fit this into their lives too?
I will tell you, when I was asking you questions or thinking about how does it work, I was thinking about airplanes too. I don't have a lot of allergies, like nasal kind of allergies. Once in a while, random pets once in a while. But for the most part, I was thinking, doing a lot of traveling now, I wonder if this would work on an airplane. And that's...
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that I've gotten pretty used to it. And the last time I flew, about a month or two ago, I was flying back home and I had given away my last tube that I keep with, like, if somebody asks me about it and if I have it, then I'll just give it to them. And then I was on the plane, and then about an hour and a half into my flight, I was like, oh, my nose is starting to run. I kind of wish that
I kept that last tube, right? So what would you say, or would you say that it's difficult to create sort of your own space within, especially within a family business? Like, is it easy for you to be innovative within the company, especially because it was already established for so long? I know you're, sort of taking over this particular product, but did you have any sort of challenges coming into the company and sort of saying, okay, I want to change things this way and that way?
I think the good part on that front was that we were starting a new strategy. I think if I had been coming in when things were running along as they had been, I don't think I would have been able to, just in terms of my own personality, I don't think I would have been able to, step in and take control right away, which I didn't even do for the first couple of months or however long it was. I was really just working on that part-time while I was exploring other opportunities. It was really when we were sitting down to create something new together that I was able to carve out a space for myself where I do have more of this, creative, people-oriented background, whereas my dad is really the technical person, the business-minded person, and he's great at all of that, like, building relationships in terms of manufacturing, supply chain, packaging, all of that stuff. He really knows how to do it. And of course, the formulation, he knows the science behind it. But in terms of understanding, how to relate to customers, what might work on that front, I think he recognized that was already more of my skill set than it was his, even though he'd been doing it for a lot longer. So I think, not to say that it wasn't challenging, he has been the boss for a very long time, and I am not the kind of person to let my dad tell me what to do. So that was a little bit challenging, but I do think there were defined roles for both of us.
Mm-hmm. What would you say, or how many people would you say are in the company at this time overall?
So it fluctuates, but we're about 6 to 8 people. And then, when we're in the process of formulating or, doing that kind of anything that requires outside help, then we take on outside consultants.
Okay.
But everything we do is...
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, are
everything...
you... We're talking at the same time. You go first.
I was going to say everything that we do is basically local. We manufacture our product in New Jersey. We package it in New Jersey. We ship it from here.
That's perfect. That was going to be one of my questions. So I was going to also going to ask too, is the product in the drugstore, or where would people find it? Is it readily available everywhere or online?
Right now we're selling it on our website, and we're also selling it on Amazon. And this is our first year of having the product out there. Mm-hmm. We're really hoping to gain some momentum, have people start to ask for it in stores, and move on in the right way. The challenge that we have is that this is a very different product from what's out there. It doesn't really fit in the traditional drugstore category. So we need people to start understanding how we work and how we can help fit into their lives. And then I think it might. Then from there, I think there would be a place for us in retail, but we're not there yet.
Does it go into, what category would it go into? Is it like an all-natural product? Is it a beauty, non-prescription product, or a little bit of everything?
So it's an over-the-counter product. It's drug-free, so everything in it is cosmetic grade. There's no active ingredient. So yeah, we're not a drug. Mm-hmm. So, but technically not a beauty product either,
So it's not like or is it like would airborne be, I'm focused on travel. Would airborne be sort of a similar category? I know it's a different product, but just... I guess that's one of our angles. Yeah, targeting the people who are, frequently in crowded spaces, things like that. But airborne, I think, is an immune booster. So it's something that you ingest. It's vitamins. This is different. This is instant. You put it on around and it works for 4 to 6 hours. You don't have to be constantly taking it if you don't want to. It's great if you do. If you're concerned about air quality issues, then it's completely safe to put it on all the time. But if you just want to put it on before your flight, it'll work perfectly. And I love too that you said it disappears once you put it on. So it's not like almost like sunscreen. When you put it on your nose, you see it there or something.
Oh no, yeah.
On the plane.
So I was definitely the guinea pig when I was a kid.
Right.
My dad would come home from the lab and he would have a new version for me to try out. And I definitely got those early versions where they would dry and leave kind of like a white film around your nose, and I would run away. Like, I don't want any more. But now, you put it on and you don't see it.
Yeah, you don't want it to look like dry snot or anything. That I know that's gross to say, but
of course, yeah.
So has your dad talked at all about retiring anytime soon, or does he love, the work that he's doing now? And then, of course, having you in the business, I'm sure, as a bonus. But do you all have those conversations at all?
We do. My dad is the kind of person who I think every once in a while will say, I should retire. But then he also comes up with a new idea. So I don't see him ever being able to completely walk away. But I do think that he is ready to think about transitioning. He's in his late 60s, and I think he would like to see that what he has created will be able to run without him in some form or another. And I think we're getting to that point, that we've brought this new product to a level where he might not have to be the person who's out there hustling all the time to get it out. And yes, having me involved has been a big part of that.
Would you say that being in the family business has been everything that you expected, or has it been some things that you haven't expected? What has been your experience so far in the past year or so that you've been doing it?
I think it's been a lot better than I ever imagined when I was a child. I definitely did not intend to do this. I pursued a very different path. And I kind of stumbled into this. And part of the reason was, yes, this didn't seem appealing to me to, spend this much time with my family's business when I had worked so hard to get away from here. But I actually really admired the amount of work that my parents put into creating this. I don't think anybody really understands how hard it is to start a business and then build it up and run it unless you've done it. And I would not have ever had that appreciation for what they did if I hadn't come in and seen it for myself. I think because I had the trust of my father, like he knew me for 30 years, he gave me a lot of responsibility right away, which I don't think I necessarily would have been trusted with by a lot of other people. And I think in situations like this, the only way that you can really learn how to do this stuff is by doing it. Mm-hmm. And I really think that because I had this support network, this business built by people who trusted my abilities, even probably more than I did at the time that I started, it really was the step that I needed.
What would you say is one thing that you wish someone would have told you before you entered the family business? One thing you wish someone would have told you, or the one thing, if you could share one thing with anyone out there who might be considering going into the family business, what would that be?
I think that you need to make sure that you keep your family life separate from your business life, mm-hmm. Because that's one thing that is very challenging, and you can get into a bad cycle very quickly. Because I started working with my dad on a very regular basis. I'm talking to him all the time. I stopped really making time for those conversations that are not about work. I stopped, going over to visit my parents on the weekend because I was at the office during the week. I stopped calling my mom just to chat so much because I've already talked to my dad all day. So after a few months of that, you kind of realize, oh, something's changed here. You don't want to let your family relationship suffer or become, tense because you've let work take over. So I think the earlier you can recognize that that's a challenge, that's a risk, you'll be better off.
And how do you make sure that you don't let that happen? Is it because it reminds me of what people say when they work with their, partner or spouse, that they try as best they can to sort of leave work at work or focus on work when at work and then personal outside. So for yourself, do you sort of create your own boundaries and then remember, when you are talking to your mom outside of the office, it is just you talking to your mom and not business?
Yeah, I think it's something that I consciously had to, tell myself, okay, remember, call my mom, on a Sunday night, back, before I started working there, I used to do. And then once you start getting into those habits again, it works. But mm-hmm. At one point, my dad and I did talk about how we didn't want all of our conversations to be work. And, right. He feels it too. He misses talking to his daughter. So obviously it happens, something comes up and, one of you has an idea and you'll mention it. But having that conversation I think is key.
What would you say that entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
I think, like I said, you don't really learn how to do this stuff until you try. It has really changed the way that I see myself. Before I did this, I would not have ever thought of myself as somebody who could even come on and talk to you even. People who maybe knew me before have seen a change in me, but the people that I've met in the last couple of years, if I tell them, back in 5 years ago, I had zero confidence. I would get nervous talking on the phone. They're really surprised. I think standing up here, like coming here and taking this kind of risk has made me realize that a lot of other things in life aren't as scary either. I think as a woman, I lacked a lot of that, the confidence that I talked about, but I think you're also kind of conditioned to think that you shouldn't do things unless you really know how to do them. Mm-hmm. Or it's something that, a lot of my friends have talked about, where we don't try things unless we think that we're going to, unless we think that we're already really qualified for them. But I don't think that's true. I've become a lot less scared of failing or wondering what people are going to think of me, not just in my work life, but in my personal life as well. And I think it has a lot to do with this.
So in closing, Aikta, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
I think I would have to say my dad, not just because of, he's my business partner, but because he really did see that there was something more that was in me that needed to come out. And if he had not given me that space, which I know I'm very lucky to have, I'm very lucky to have parents who had a business that I could come into. But if he hadn't taken that risk with me and made me think that it was okay to take that kind of risk, I could very well still be, working in that same corporate job all these years later. And I really owe him a lot for recognizing that I could be doing something completely different.
For recognizing that in your career, obviously, and bringing you into the business, but also the way that it just sounds, just from spending the past, 45 minutes talking to you, the way you have evolved as a person because of this experience sounds like it was a gift as well, even if you didn't know that would be a part of the gift.
Yeah, 100%.
So now, what are the ways that we can support you? Tell everyone where they can find NasalGuard. Of course, I'll have links to everything, but tell everyone website, any social media, or anything else you want us to know.
Yeah, so we are at nasalguard.com. That's nasalguard.com. You can also buy us on Amazon. We have a Facebook account, so you can follow us there. See what we're posting. If you guys would like to try NasalGuard, you can use the code TRY10 when you check out, and you'll get 10% off your order.
Oh, nice.
But yeah,
the number 10.
Yeah. And if you have any questions for me, you can just email me. It's my name, AIKTA @nasalguard.com. Yeah.
Okay. Now I can leave your email in here because my people reach out, Aikta. So if you give your email, is that okay?
I would love to hear from anybody. Okay. Yeah, anybody who's listening to this.
Excellent. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you for being so open to just about your personal story, in addition to, things that we need to know about business, working in the family business, whether it's with a spouse. And certainly I love that you have the perspective of working with a parent, which could go, I'm sure, either way. But it sounds like your dad really, as you said, saw the light in you, the potential in you, and kind of gives you your space to figure it out. So thank you for sharing that part of your journey with us.
Yeah, and thank you so much for talking to me. This was a really great conversation.
Excellent. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
Do something that scares you, even if it's small. Just do something today or even just every day that is a little bit different from what you normally do.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Aikta. To find out more about her, to find out more about NasalGuard, and to get a discount to try the products. I love for you guys to try the products. Tell me what you think. Tell Aikta what you think. Go to supportissexy.com. Go to that search icon at the top and just type in Aikta, AIKTA. Her show notes page will pop up with links, resources, how to find out more about NasalGuard, get that discount, and all that good stuff. Supportissexy.com and just search Aikta. Thank you again so much for being here. You know I appreciate you. And until we chat again, always remember, support is sexy, and having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.